Okay, so I have an idea for how to do this, so we're not both absolutely insane with knowledge, if you will indulge me, which I think is appropriate since we're talking about Tim Curry.
Go on.
So the idea I have is because Tim Curry has done so much, literally there is a Wikipedia page called Tim Curry Performances, separate from the Tim Curry page, because
Mm,
there's just so many of them. So I think we should do it kind of by medium, just so that we don't go absolutely insane. So let's start
okay.
out with what would you like to talk about first, as far as Tim Curry goes?
What would I like to talk about first with Tim Curry?
Yeah,
Wow.
you have to pick something. I mean, unless you have a different way you want to do this.
Okay, let's go with something that a lot should be quite a common knowledge one. Um, let's go with his performance as Wadsworth in Clue.
All right. So we're going to start with films, which I think is an appropriate place. So most people probably saw. Oh, by the way, do you want to start? Because I have some idea about this, but I don't want to step on your toes here.
Mm. Um, so seeing Tim Curry as Wadsworth in Clue was a very pleasant surprise. I saw the Clue mm, not too, some years back, but not too long ago, and I'd heard about Clue the movie, but I didn't know really too much about it, who was in it and such. Um, so when he opened the door and he appeared, it was an absolute pleasant surprise. He really did anchor the film around himself. Um, as great as so, I am a bit of a hankering for the murder mystery and such, and for mysteries in general. So I think Clue would still been quite a darling for me.
Yeah.
But you know, when you're talking about someone that just personifies a role, um, Tim's flamboyant, almost phonetic energy was just perfect to like capture the film and such. And he really did drive it forward. So
Quite
yeah,
literally, a third of the movie is him explaining the plot of the movie.
well, well, yes, uh, it's sort of like an in-person narrator,
Yeah.
as it were. Um, yeah, so that's my thoughts on it. I don't think Clue would have been half as memorable if it hadn't been for his absolutely stellar performance.
Yeah, it was a stellar cast, with a script
Mm,
that was not well received in its time. It really Clue is one of the movies that was saved by syndication, much like MASH was. The only
mm,
reason most of us know Clue and it doesn't get lost in the annals of time is because it showed on TV every other day, more or less. And so you became like very enamored with Clue. There's something very magnetizing about all of the cast, but especially Madeline Kahn and Tim Curry together for me in Clue. Yes, my friend who is listening in is doing the flames on the side of my face line. But there's something so incredibly like magnetic and weird and raunchy about whatever Tim Curry is doing that like it's one of those things where you just drawn to it makes sense too because Tim Curry knew Freddie Mercury very well. And
mm,
so he and Freddie had sort of that energy that's very similar. But
mm.
yeah, Clue is a great kind of very I think there's roles he's known for, but I think when you ask the average person, who do you think of when you think of Tim Curry? Most people will say the butler from Clue, even if they don't know his full name. So that's a really good way to start.
I think like strangely magnetic is a brilliant way to describe Tim Curry. Like
Yeah.
he's one of those people that the moment you hear the name or see him, you know exactly who he is. He's never a background figure as an actor. Um,
Even in Camelot, where he played Lancelot, which
mm,
I want to give a pitch for as one of the wildest versions of a thing he'd ever done because he was doing straight romance. It's wild. There is just something so incredible about what Tim Curry does and how he responds to the world he's in. Um,
mm,
I to go with along with his character Wadsworth, I'd like to also make a play for his character as Long John Silver in Muppet Treasure Island. Sort of different energy, but sort of like leading a cast. I feel like
Mm,
Long John Silver and Wadsworth the Butler do a little bit of the same work. And they're not very far apart on the timeline. Muppet Treasure Island was in 96 and Clue was in 85. So they're only a decade apart. And in that decade, he did an immense body of work that we
mm,
know him for today. Um, but yeah, him and Clue as Wadsworth, literally a third of the movie is I can't like express this enough. Like beyond the one-liners, she spends a third of the movie reenacting the movie you just saw, explaining the plot. It takes a big actor to be able to do that in a way that is mildly, like in any way, shape, or form, compelling.
mm.
And he does it.
Oh, yeah.
His version of Eileen Brennan's Mrs. Peacock's scream, and then like the
Mm.
slap thing. It's so good. It's so good and it's so gay. You know what I mean?
I do know what you mean, yes, very much so.
Can you name the other very iconic Tim Curry role that happened the same year as Clue?
His role in Legend.
It was. He played, it's not the devil. He plays something called Darkness, which looks like the devil, I will grant you, but the name of the character is Darkness.
Oh,
And so Legend and Clue are both the same year, if you can believe it.
yes, wasn't that when he was like they did him out, red skin, massive horns. He kills a unicorn, I believe, as well.
Yeah, I've never actually seen Legend, but I know of it because Tim Curry was in it. And it kind of lives on because of Tim Curry as the devil, essentially.
I have never seen it, but my partner has, and he said it was absolutely traumatizing to him as a
Oh,
child. But
fabulous. I kind of feel like
he,
I have to see it now.
uh, so he's been threatening to put it on our watch list at some point. And just the imagery that I have seen from what he has shown me, I can see completely what he means. Like, it may be put as a family film, but it takes a lot of kahoochas to put a flamboyant devil in a family film
Yeah.
that's so like big and larger than life.
I maintain children are weirder and more vulgar than we give them credit for. Like I said in the South Park episode, like I don't think that a flamboyant Tim Curry-esque devil is one, such a big stretch, but two,
Mm.
not something kids can handle. I mean, I showed my partner Return to Oz last year and he'd never seen it. And he was like, this is what you loved as a child? And I was like, yes, I love Return to Oz. It's my like, because I don't like I can't do the thing that scares me more than anything is there is a sequel to one of the never ending tale films, and it's the
Mm.
one in which the villain creates this memory stealing machine. So every time the lead character makes a wish, he loses a memory of himself. And something about that scares the hell out of me. But like a high fantasy film like Legend, which for me sounds like it's very close to like Willow, I don't think it could scare me as much as the idea of a memory machine taking my memories without my permission when I do a thing that I
Mm.
consider good. So like bring on the fear of high fantasy. I can deal with that. But like the darkness is really a thing we still think about more or less because of Jim Curry as the devil. Like
Mm.
I can't imagine anything in that film supplanting that.
Mm. Indeed. Mm. So not he's done. I'm just looking through a list of his performances just to get some recollection as well, and
Yeah.
the amount of things that I'm remembering now that I saw him in as a kid and as a teenager, and even recently as an adult, that his filmography is
I can
extensive,
tell
is the
you,
right word.
I will tell you every time someone brings me coffee cake, I quote his manic line from Congo, do not touch the coffee cake. And everyone just looks at me like I'm absolutely insane. And I'm like, no, it's the scene with Tim Curry in Congo. And then everyone goes, oh, just like that. But like Tim Curry and the Congo screaming, do not touch my coffee cake is just as good as Tim Curry screaming, we're going to the next area, space, from like the Space Force video that is the thing he's most known for currently. But like Tim Curry in 1993's Disney film The Three Musketeers, where no, what's his name? Chris O'Donnell tries to play young D'Artagnan, and Tim Curry is Cardinal Richelieu, just giving the most
Yes.
vibrant, evil red dip performance you've ever seen. Like, I get tingles all over my body thinking about this version of Three Musketeers with the One for All and All for Love soundtrack. God bless America. That was when Disney was really at its best, was that live action reimagining of Three
Mm,
Musketeers. And just to have Tim Curry at the center of Three Musketeers, Muppet Treasure Island, like that was the time. That was when you were alive. You know what I mean? Also,
yeah,
there's Home Alone 2, Lost in New York, but I gotta give it to Muppet Treasure Island, honestly.
I was gonna mention about Home Alone 2 because we saw it
Yeah.
again at Christmas, and I don't know, I was slightly offended. I have this high opinion of Tim Curry, so seeing him as a conniving, interfering busybody, I don't know, he just you're
So
like wrong way. I
no,
don't know if
I
I'm quite revert to like that.
no, I really like him in that film because he
Mm,
plays second string with um the lady from the Addams family who was
mm,
who became the wife of cousin Ed, because she's
yes,
one of the people there with him for that, so that makes it work. I think it's too small a role to be my favorite Tim Curry role, but it is a role when people think of Tim Curry, they go, oh, the guy from Home Alone 2. Um, but he's not in as very much of the film. Like Catherine O'Hara, like yelling at him is sort of his
yes,
biggest moment in the film when he's aghast or when he's reacting. That's a role for him where he's reacting more than leading, but he's still so
true.
damn magnetic, even with a desk between him and the camera. Like you can't help but think about him in it. And it's a
Yes.
really neat thing that only really he can do. We don't see that much anymore.
No. I have to say, I mean, figure back about it, and the fact that most of these films were only a year apart.
Yeah,
This
his
was his high point era.
He's been working since even before his first actual role was a stage role in Hair where he played Wolf, which trying to imagine a young Tim Curry in Hair is I just my mind can't wrap around it. But in
Mm,
1973, he was the first Dr. Frankenfurter on stage for the Rocky Horror Show. And then in
mm,
75, he became Dr. Frank for the film. And of course, Dr. Frank, as we approach Halloween, is one of the most iconic not I don't know that I think of Dr. Frank as a villain. I don't think he's malevolent enough to be that. But like there's something about the fact this role would not exist without Tim Curry. Dr. Frank
mm,
just simply wouldn't be, because who else could be the first Dr. Frank? Who else would create this legacy of actually chaotic
mm.
bisexualism that is Dr. Frankenfurter? Like, hello.
Yes. Well, it's clearly there's a good reason why, let's be honest, it's his most iconic role. We've spoken about other roles he's done which really do stand out and you remember, but
Yeah.
I think for him as Frankenfurter, that's clearly his. If you have to point out, if you have to be a bit like on the nose and say what is the sole thing that he will be remembered for, it will be that portrayal, that performance. Um,
Yeah.
and
He,
I mean, there's a reason for it. Um, and
I
as we
yeah.
approach the 50th anniversary of the film, um, I'm just all ready to go and go crazy for it next year.
I think it's going to be amazing. As someone that's been in the shadow cast, it's such a hard show to do even as a shadow cast, but like Dr.
Mm,
Frank is such an amazing character. Of the characters he's did on stage and film, it's definitely one of my favorites. And I think there's something about the moment for me in Rocky Horror Picture Show when he introduces himself and he has that really great sweet transvestite song. It's not just a song, It's my favorite thing is the motion he does when he rips off his cape to reveal his undergarments, and he like
Mm,
does the thing where his cape becomes part of his throne. Like that is
hmm
not something that you can just think of. That is instinct and celebration. And something about that whole sequence is incredible.
mm.
I have no idea. The only more incredible sequence that is a musical sequence involving Tim Curry that is like silly and not so serious. I don't know if you've ever seen this, by the way, from 1986, The Worst Witch, where he plays like the headmaster of the boarding school, the Grand Wizard as it was. He does this song called Anything Can Happen on Halloween, which is like the first version of a green screen. He pulls a tambourine out of nowhere. He's got this like cream white vest on with a bat bow tie, and it's the absolute insanity of it is like the polar opposite of the frank sexuality of Sweet Transvestite. But they're both Tim, and they both work, which is kind of insane.
I have to admit, I haven't watched that version of The Worst Witch, but I am intrigued. I will
Uh,
admit.
I
Yeah.
believe Perusa Bulk is actually the lead actress in that cast because she's like 8 or something in that film. So she's like just at the right age.
Hmm. Interesting. Have a look at his filmography. This is some. Oh, this is a film I haven't watched for many a year, but I'm surprised. This is perhaps an example of him in a completely non-dramatic or comical role. When he was in The Hunt for Red October
Oh yeah,
back in
this is a
1990.
so he does these like smaller, they're quote unquote smaller roles. He makes them into bigger roles just by being himself. But yeah, he's in The Hunt for Red October. People don't think about it because it's just him being a character, but he has done a whole bunch of stuff where he's literally like he played Buttons in Cinderella on stage. But he's
Hmm.
incredible in Hunt for Red October. He's incredible in the stage version of Amadeus. But yeah, he's in Hunt for Red October. That was, let me see if I can get to the year
What?
that
That
was
was
in.
1990.
It was 1990. Yeah, see, I have to, and there it is. Yeah, and that was even a couple years after. So like that's sandwiched between Clue and Home Alone 2 is The Hunt for Red October. But he's in like
Hmm.
5 other movies between those two as well.
Wow. Sorry, just mind boggled because I'm reading the cast list for Red October, and it's a who's who of like
I
veteran talent.
I
I
think
mean,
it's easily the most recognized of the author that because it's a Tom Clancy book. And so it's
yes.
probably the most recognizable Tom Clancy book. So of course, this is the height of Tom Clancy as well. So it's an American submarine spy movie in 1990. I don't think it got parodied in cartoons afterwards so much because it didn't know what Tom Clancy did.
It, I think it's just, dare I say, too serious a concept to really parody too much. But
Yeah, no, it's
in,
definitely a serious concept, honestly.
in terms of like, but casting, like that Sean Connery, Alec Baldwin, Josh Ackland, Peter Firth, Scott Glenn, James Earl Jones, oh, Sam Neill. My goodness, I
Honestly, in America, Hunt for Red October is probably what Sean Connery is known for over being James Bond. I think in
wow.
America, Hunt for Red October is like people know him as James Bond, but I think Hunt for Red October is the thing that Sean Connery is most known for here in America. I mean, other than that is Indiana Jones' dad in the third Indiana Jones movie, The Last Crusade. But I would argue Hunt for Red October is probably Sean's best known, best loved role here in America. I would argue for that.
Wow. Mm. So do you want to move on shortly to some of his TV work?
I I would actually love to talk about animated Tim Curry, and it can
Mm.
segue pretty easily into his TV work. Technically, The Worst Witch was a TV film, by the way. So
Mm.
I would like to talk about what I think is his scariest role and then his second scariest role. And then we can
Ooh.
talk about Nigel Thornberry. because Nigel Thornberry
Yeah.
can be the way that we go into the TV space. I would love to talk about Fern Gully, the last rainforest, as Hexus, the smog demon, destroying the rainforest and all the fairies in it. I would love to talk about the amazing song that Hexus sang in Fern Gully, the last rainforest. I would just like to take a moment for everyone to go look up the song and marinate in it and then come back to the podcast because it is an amazing ode to sumptuous consumerism. And it should be remembered as one of the best non-Disney animated songs ever created. And I know Disney now owns the catalog of things like Anastasia, which it shouldn't, but it does. I can't do anything about it, and I'll live through it. But Hexus as like the demon trickster smoke god of the rainforest, iconic. And Tim Curry just puts his neck on that film and does not let go, as the kids say.
Indeed, he's done roles in quite some iconic things at the end of the day.
Oh yeah.
And just going back to what you were just saying about Fern Gully, I mean, not as well watched as the Disney classics, but there's something so striking about Fern Gully as an animated film, and it goes into territory that Disney, I don't think, will ever
Yeah.
quite go into. They'll
think-
do environmental films, but they'll
Yeah.
put a fantasy spin on it.
I think if you look at Fern Gully paired with like Land Before Time, which is also not a Disney film, talking about how we play with the environment. Fern Gully does something much more special than Land Before Time. Land Before Time is still very good, of course, the first one at least. But like Fern Gully is a very special film because it's a very risky film. But it's not something that you could probably make these days without being called like a liberal commie, honestly. But as a liberal commie, I think I just wanted to celebrate. I couldn't do a Tim Curry podcast without talking about Hexus or without talking about Forte, the definitely gay composer up in the attic, hidden like organ piano in Beauty and the Beast, The Enchanted Christmas, the weird sequel prequel to Beauty and the Beast, where literally Tim Curry plays an evil organ. Like, I'm not even making that up. He plays an evil CGI'd organ trying to keep the Beast from celebrating Christmas because he doesn't want the Beast to feel joy. It's absurd and amazing, and it's like a great Tim Curry performance in the middle of this very subpar Beauty and the Beast prequel that was made as a sequel, but it's a prequel. I don't know. He's like chained. He's an organ. He's chained to a wall for some reason, and he's also up in the attic. And we don't meet him in the original movie, but we meet him in the sequel. But he's huge. So how we avoided him in the original movie, I have no idea.
Limitations of the plot.
Yeah.
That's all we can say.
He's just there's a much better movie inside The Enchanted Christmas somewhere, but Tim Curry's not stuck in that movie. Tim Curry's stuck in the movie that we got. And Tim Curry is the only thing that keeps that movie anywhere near the level of it, and it's all due to Tim Curry. There's nothing else in that movie. I love the concept of one of the servants becomes a sentient Christmas tree angel. I don't want to think about the fact that Americanized Christmas is being celebrated in 17th century France, but like I like the idea of a servant as a Christmas tree angel, and like that is their eternal punishment. But him as also the name of the organ is Forte. Like it's so deliciously on the nose and absurd that you can't kind of help but like love it a whole hell of a lot. You know what I mean?
So I didn't quite realize this, but until I was just looking now in his filmography, Captain Hook actually, sorry, Captain. I've given the game away already.
No, he's played Captain Hook, but it was like a animated version of Captain Hook. Yeah, on Peter Pan and the Pirates for Fox Kids. Yeah.
That's what I was about to say. Peter Pan and Pirates. I grew up with that version of Peter Pan. I did not realize that Tim Curry had been the voice of the very threatening Captain Hook. So, Peter Pan the Pirates is a show I actually grew up with, and I remember being slightly terrified of Captain Hook. Like, he was so threatening, and like you could feel that he would do horrible things to the kids if he got his hands on them. Um, and well, dare I say, hand and hook. Um, so to actually find that it was Tim Curry that was adding the menace to this version of Hook.
I love that. I love that you can still be surprised by Tim Curry and what Tim Curry can do.
Hook was definitely quite vicious. I think it was perhaps though like the actual character and what he felt he was capable of. Perhaps added that sort of danger element to it.
So he started doing more animated stuff
Mm.
after his stroke in 2012. But even before that, his list of television roles that are just like he voiced a villain in everything from Mighty Max to Tiny Toon Adventures to Tailspin to Captain Planet. He was even in Batman the Animated Series and Batman Beyond. That's how long he was doing it, is he did both of them. He was a voice in Freakazoid, which is really great, which I'm enthused to find out about. Obviously, his probably his biggest animated voice from TV, the longest running one, would have been the Wild Thornberrys. His kind of delightfully deceived dad, Nigel Thornberry, is probably one of the ones he's most known for and gets memed the most out of everything, I think.
But it's nice to see sort of like his eccentricity, sort of like in that other space, so to speak.
It's true, yes. There is a role he had that I did not know he had
Oh,
that it kind of makes sense that is one of the lesser eccentric roles, but it's one of the more important ones.
okay.
He voiced Sir, the Sir model on the extraterrestrial alien encounter Disney ride. This was before it became Stitch's Great Adventure ride, when it was
Mm.
literally where it was literally a dark ride in Disneyland where they like strap you into this non-moving ride vehicle and you get the breath of literally the alien from the Alien franchise like breathing down your neck. And it was so terrifying they had to give it to Stitch once Lilo and Stitch was a thing. But he voices the lead of that ride. And I always kind of wish I could have seen him. He apparently, when he was very young, played Puck in Midsummer Night's Dream. I'm just
Ah.
envisioning the world in which I can see Tim Curry as Puck because there's no way that is not the most amazing version because there's something about um, Puck that is very sexual towards King Oberon. And I feel like I've never seen anyone do a version of Midsummer where you really feel the like sexual tension between Puck and Oberon. And I feel like Tim Curry as Puck really, really gets it.
Mm. Yes, I can totally see that. It would have been interesting to see him in that role. Are you saying that's a TV show or an animated one?
Uh, no, I kind of veered off piste because there's just so much. If I didn't veer off piste every now and again, we wouldn't get anything done. No, but he's done his animated stuff kind of rides the gamut. A lot of it is Disney, but a lot of it is not. Like
Mm.
technically, Rugrats is not Disney, but like his turn on Mighty Ducks, the animated TV show, is Disney. So he actually did quite a work for every single major studio, which is
Yeah.
phenomenal. It makes me very happy.
I want to add in one thing regarding animated and Disney we haven't brought up yet.
Yeah,
Is the fact he did do he was the voice of Palpatine, Darth Sidious for Star Wars: The Clone Wars cartoon as well.
yeah. It's a little sad because he got that role because the person that originally voiced that role passed away.
Mm.
But it's nice that he can still do it. Is still able to take those sort of things. And the fact he's probably done video games probably helped him to prepare for that too. Because I feel like the Star Wars universe now feels very video game-ish.
Yeah,
And so it's kind of it's kind of nice. Yeah,
in, indeed. So, just thinking about time today,
yeah.
um, did you want to venture into another area of his work? Were you thinking about looking at his theatre work as well?
He's done some really good theater work. I still make the case that my favorite Tim Curry theater character is not him as Dr. Frank, because the movie one is great. Um, I still I need people to listen to the cast album of Camelot, not Spamalot, because he was in Spamalot. He worked with Eric Idle quite a bit actually. But his version of Lancelot, hearing him sing that kind of love story, sappy, almost way too confectionery Camelot music is incredible. Like, you'll never think of Tim Curry the same way again. Kind of like when he did Over the Garden Wall as Auntie Whiskers. It was such a
Mm.
turn because Go Over the Garden Wall is such a bizarre thing. Like, Lancelot is bizarre in a different way because it's so like it's like when you see Vincent Price in like the one film he did where he played a romantic lead. It's like you're like, what are you doing here? It's amazing, but I don't really understand. So I've got to give a case for like I'm very much team like Lancelot. I would have loved to have seen him in Hair, but like seeing him in Lancelot, seeing him even in Titus Andronicus and Midsummer's Night Dream, he played Mozart in Amadeus, the stage show, not the movie. And I would want to see him as Amadeus. I can't even imagine how incredible that was. That's a death scene worth seeing. You know what I mean?
Yes, I do. And was that the one where he lost out to Ian McKellen for
No, he plays
Tony?
opposite Ian McKellen in that, because Ian McKellen plays Salieri.
Mm. Oh no, he did. So Curry was nominated for a Tony Award,
Oh, okay.
but he lost out to Ian McKellen, who got the award instead, and that was in 1981.
Oh no, see, you got to go to a second Wikipedia page because there's a Wikipedia page for Tim Curry with his awards, and then there's a Wikipedia page for Tim Curry's performances. So I have to toggle to get back to the awards. Actually, he won a daytime Emmy for Peter Pan and the Pirates. Interestingly
Ooh.
enough, he did win an Emmy for that specific role.
Mm.
He also won a Cable Ace Award for Tales from the Crypt for the episode he did for that, which is kind of amazing.
Ooh, interesting. Y- Yeah, just to touch on Peter Pan the Pirates, I remember it being a bit darker and more mature at times than what you'd expect for a kids animated show. So I can totally see why he'd get a award for such a performance.
I mean, where I lived, it was on at like 5:30 in the morning. So I'm not surprised that it was darker, only because I used to watch it before the sun came up.
Oh dear. Mm,
Oh,
wow. Looking at some of the other stuff he's done, he was King Arthur in Spamalot. He did Scrooge for A Christmas Carol. Um, oh, he did the national tour of Me and My Girl um,
yeah.
back in 1988.
He is an amazing actor, and I'm so glad he's still around. I've never been able to
Mm.
meet him in person because it's a really expensive, as it should be, to meet him. But
Yeah.
like, Mr. Curry, you are a legend, and I don't deign that you'll ever watch this, but maybe you'll see something I make later or something Magnus makes later, and you'll be like, "That's incredible, guys." And I really want to just like thank you for being you, Mr. Curry. Really, I talking to you as though you're here. I just want to thank you because I think your body of work has been incredible, and you are a cherished part of both of our lives. Um, yeah, I feel like if he maybe he'll catch that the vibration in the air will let him know how loved he is today. No, that'd be kind of nice.
Oh, oh, isn't that a lovely note to sum up this thing? And
Yeah,
I completely agree with it. Um, like looking over as we've done today, talking about all of this stuff, I didn't even comprehend the sheer breadth and magnitude of the impact he's had with his roles and such, and how what a part he played in so many little formative moments. So yeah, I
Yeah.
completely 100% echo what you've just said, and thankful to have such a wonderful, eccentric, brilliant actor around that's had part of our childhood and our growing up.
It is fabulous. And speaking of magnitude, we are heading into the holiday season. So I'm very
Ooh.
excited. We'll probably talk about Tim Curry more. So here's a question I have for all of you as we close this episode. Which Tim Curry role do you think of? It doesn't have to be your favorite, but when I say Tim Curry, what role do you think of first? Like, what's the first thing that pops into your head? There are no wrong answers because it's Tim Curry, so everything is going to be all right. Also, don't touch his coffee cake. I know he won a Razzie for that role, but my God, such a line reading of "Don't touch my coffee cake." Like, say it to your friends next time someone has coffee cake. You'll get a reaction, I guarantee you. Um, I'm so excited to be doing Halloween with you again, Magnus. And I can't wait for what we bring more of on Everything is Gay, even the straight stuff. We'll see you all again soon. Promises. We'll shiver with Antitha.
Passion.
There we go. All right. Everyone have a good night, and we'll see you again soon. Bye.
Farewell.